Hi everybody, Jens Johansson here again from J2 Building Consultants, experts in providing solutions to building owners on how to maintain and repair their buildings. From the smallest to the tallest, we've spent the last 25 years understanding construction. Welcome to another free educational video series, and in this video I'm going to share with you after the litigation dust settles. This is really aimed at condominium board members who have been involved in the construction defect litigation process. As with all our educational videos, we have found that simply talking to you like we would talk to you in our conference room or out on the sidewalk in front of the street is way better than a glitzy, animated, super flyover video that we could do with the video editing software we have. So I'm just going to talk to you. So sit back, see what we can go through, and see if it helps. We hope it does. So let's get started. We have 8 basic steps here. This is a pretty big process. And so today's video, I'm just going to touch on the highlights. But the first step, of course, is revisiting the scope. In any litigation process that goes through a mediation thing or process, two things happen. One, your scope that you go into litigation with includes everything from defects to damages to anything and everything. And then part 2, the mediation process, almost invariably, if you ask for 100 cents on the dollar, there's some type of settlement that's less than that. So you come out of litigation saying, wait a minute, here was my scope, now here's what I have left over. I was asking for $5 million, we settled for $3 million, I had to pay costs to legal and expert fees through the way, I've got $2 million left. So of course, I want the $5 million, but I've got the $2 million. So how does this change our scope? Do we just value engineer it down to what you have, or do we start revisiting things on the budget and other funding sources? So that's why it takes us to number 2. So budgets are made up of a multitude of things. One, it can be your litigation lawsuit settlement funds. 2, maybe you have some reserve funds set aside because you've been watching your reserve study, you've been setting aside funds, right? You have some savings, and so let's look at our capital account. Maybe we have some money to help contribute to that. Let's look at maybe we can go get a bank loan. There's banks that specialize in condominium lending, and we start like any budget. We start making it up of a little bit of this, a little bit of this, a little bit of this, and a little bit of this, and we put it together, and then if we have to go back to the association and ask for a special assessment, we can do that too. So that helps us get to our budget. How much is our budget? Then the third piece is design package. Here's where it says, you know what, this is what we were complaining about in the litigation. We have problems, leaky windows and bad siding, but since we're going to be pulling out all the windows and siding in this process, doesn't it make sense to take a look at the deck membranes as well? You know, those weren't leaking, so we weren't complaining about it, but it's kind of like putting a flat tire back on a new car. And so since we're going to all this work, now's the time to really do that extra piece. So revisiting what you're going to be doing. And these 3 are all kind of related. Here's the scope, that now what we want, here's the money that we have to do it, and here's a few extra things we're going to put into it because it just makes sense. It's the right time to do those things. So then you go on to the contractor selection. Oftentimes your bylaws require multiple bids on projects over a certain amount of size. Another way to do it is negotiate with a contractor that you trust. Another way to do it is a design build option. As one of our clients, and I like the phrase, he said, I want one throat to choke. I don't want the designer and the contractor pointing at each other. We want one stop shop. So there's several different ways you can pick a contractor. Then after we've got the contractor, we want to define our roles and our communication flow. What does your project team consist of? Does it have an architect? Does it have an engineer? Does it have a quality control inspector? Does it have an owner's rep? Does it have a construction manager? Maybe the project's small, so just one person wears several hats and they do all that. Or maybe it's a huge project and it's just, you need a bench of players to be able to accomplish these. So, we've been on projects where there's 3 architects, there's, 4 engineers, there's a geotech, there's a, so who are the players, and then who communicates with who or whom. We'll figure that out later. But another important player is your community manager. They're likely paying the checks. They're coordinating with communication flow with the board and the residents. Who communicates through who? What is your communication flow program? Who approves what? We want to keep things moving. We want to keep it fast. So fast and efficient. So define those roles and make sure you follow them. And then get going. Commence and oversee the work. So the work gets started. We're overseeing the work. We're making sure it's done correctly. We're making sure that the budget is staying on course. We're making sure that the questions get answered along the way. And one of these important pieces that jumps back to budget. So the project is ongoing, and we're doing select pieces of siding, windows, deck, maybe on an existing building. And so the building itself happens to need some maintenance. It needs a roof that needs to be done. So does that roof maintenance come out of the construction budget? Don't do that. It's our recommendation. Set up a special account for the construction repairs that you can take those multitude of sources of budget and put them in there, and then you can take just the construction account, pay applications to the contractor out of that account, and that's a real easy way to keep track of it. It's our recommendation that you don't blend it with your general funds and mix funds into one pot. So anyway, out to close out. Closeout's a term for it's wrapping up the end of the job. Make sure you get these lien releases. Make sure all the subcontractors are paid. Make sure the warranties are in place. Just make sure that everything gets buttoned up and done the way it's supposed to be. As a part of all our projects, we give a DVD or now it's a thumb drive or a Dropbox link of all the photos we've ever taken, so that everybody has the as-built plans, has the warranties, the photos, the understanding of what happened. This then helps your residents when they're selling prospectively later down the line. They can say, yeah, we did have a construction defect problem and we did fix it. Here's all the documents for your review. So disclosure helps with all those pieces. And then after the work, make sure that whatever your warranty period is, if it's a 1-year warranty, we'll come back in at 11 months and just walk around and say, hey, your sealant's failing, or there's a little bit of issue over here. Let's get it fixed under warranty while we still can. Resetting your reserves. I talk about reserve studies in another video, but now that you've redone your siding, you can go back to your reserve study and say, hey, wait a minute, we don't need siding repaired in 5 years. We get to reset that clock, so this siding is now good for another 20 years. So that changes your assessment amount, and that changes your reserve amount. And those are all the key items. So revisiting the scope, budgeting, design package, contractor selection, roles and communication, getting the job started, closing it out, and then after the work. All key steps to a successful project after the litigation dust settles. If you have any questions, please contact us. Thank you for your time.